The Follow-Up Bible, Audiobook. Read it, learn from it, win. People ask me all the time, what do I say next? How many times should I follow up? Am I being too pushy? If you're asking those questions, you're already behind. You either send one weak message and disappear, or you send 14 back-to-back messages like a psycho until someone blocks you. No strategy, no timing, no control, just noise. That ends now. If you've read the Failure Manifesto, then apply what you learn here with what you learned from there. And you might remember there's an entire chapter in that book dedicated to follow-up. There's a reason for that. This is an entire book dedicated to that chapter, because this is where people screw it all up. The follow-up isn't some optional bonus round. It is the game. If you do it right, you print money. If you do it wrong, you get blocked. I've tested follow-up strategies for years. Long campaigns, quick bursts, texts, calls, emails, pattern interrupts. And here's what I've learned. There is no perfect script, no guaranteed line, no one-size-fits-all system. If someone told you otherwise, they're full of it. And chances are you paid to hear that lie. What I can tell you is this. There's an art to follow-up. There's a frequency you have to find. There's a way to do it where you don't sound desperate, you don't get ignored, and you don't blow your shot. But before you can master that, you have to understand how it works. This book is for the ones who are tired of wondering what to say next, tired of second-guessing, tired of watching people go cold and never knowing why. Whether you're brand new to sales or a seasoned vet who just lost your edge, this is your line in the sand. This is where we stop being soft about follow-up and start using it like the weapon it is. No fluff, no vague advice, no just be authentic garbage. You're going to get real messages, real timing, real strategy, and a real mindset. You're not chasing people. You're leading them. And if you do it right, they'll thank you for it. No more overthinking, no more guessing, no more hesitation. Read it, learn from it, win. Chapter 1, one message is an apology, not a pitch. One message was never enough. It's never worked, it's never closed, it's never been taken seriously. But it is a convenient way to make yourself feel like you did something. It's the sales version of checking a box. You send one message, wait around, and tell yourself, well, I tried. No, you didn't. You waved, you liked a post, you popped in, you didn't sell. Here's what really happens after that first message. You send it, you stare at your inbox, you refresh, you start doubting yourself. Then you do nothing. Because silence feels like rejection, and rejection makes you stall. But silence isn't rejection. Silence is what happens when the message didn't do its job, didn't spark interest, didn't create urgency, didn't deliver value. Silence just means you weren't relevant enough yet, and instead of trying again, you fold. Sending one message is the modern-day equivalent of liking someone's Facebook post and expecting a proposal in return. It's surface-level effort. It's a flash of interest with no real pressure behind it. You're waiting for the prospect to do the work. You're hoping they decide to follow up with you. You're hoping that interest somehow converts into action, without friction, without persistence, without leadership. And that's why you lose. If your follow-up stops at message 1, you're not a salesperson. You're a tourist. You're visiting a conversation you don't plan to live in. The people who win in this game are the ones who stay top of mind long enough for timing to line up. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Most prospects don't say no, they say nothing. And in that nothing, they forget you, until someone else shows up consistently enough to be remembered. Let's break this down. Why does one message fail? Because humans don't act on the first impression. They decide when they're ready, but they only decide on the person they remember. You're not following up to force a decision. You're following up to be the obvious choice when they make it. If your name isn't in their head at that moment, you're done. And one message doesn't plant that seed. It doesn't build familiarity. It doesn't build trust. It doesn't even register. You become a maybe later that never resurfaces. So what do people do wrong when they try to follow up? They apologize. They lower themselves. They use garbage like just following up. Wanted to check in. Circling back. Stop sounding like you're interrupting something. Stop asking for permission. Stop reminding them you exist. Start reestablishing why your offer matters. You are not on their time. They are on yours. Say things like, have you had a chance to think about our previous conversation? Let me know when you're ready to move forward. I've got your spot held. I'm prepared to get started. Should we go ahead and lock it in this week? This isn't about pressure. This is about leadership. You're not begging for attention. You're commanding focus. Because when done right, follow-up isn't annoying. It's reassuring. It's professional. It's a sign that you care about what you do, and you expect them to as well. You're going to hear this a lot throughout this book. But let's get this planted now. The goal of follow-up is not to close on the spot. It's to stay in position long enough for them to take the next step and make it easy for them to choose you when they do. Not because you pressured them, because you were the only one still standing when they were ready. So no, you're not going to get a full system in this chapter. That's coming. You're not ready for that yet. Right now, you need to kill the idea that one message counts as anything. You need to stop thinking one message is progress, because it's not. It's a whisper. It's an excuse. It's a lie. You want the sale? Understand this. One message is not momentum. One message is not an effort. One message is not sales. One message is an apology, and your business won't survive on apologies. Start acting like the second message is where the real game begins, because it is. Chapter 2, Ghosted. So they ghosted you. No reply. No thanks, but no thanks. Nothing. That's not rejection. That's an invitation to step up. Most people treat silence like a stop sign. You treat it like a challenge. Because if they reached out to you, they wanted something. They might have changed their mind. They might have gotten busy. They opened the door, and you don't just walk away from that. When someone reaches out to me, they don't get to go quiet and disappear. They don't get to ghost their way out of the process without hearing from me again. They can say no. They can say leave me alone. They can block me. But what they're not going to do is request information, show interest, and think I'm just going to sit there like some polite rookie waiting for permission to speak again. You asked, so I'm delivering. Over and over, until you make a choice. Now, I'm not saying blow them up with 13 messages in a row. This isn't desperation. This is discipline. I use my own system, Infinite CRS, to automate smart, calculated follow-ups. It lets me stay in front of them for weeks, months, however long I decide. Because here's the deal. If you follow up poorly, you get blocked. If you follow up well, you get remembered. It's not about volume. It's about placement. Well-timed, well-phrased follow-ups keep you top of mind without being white noise. People think silence means they're not interested. No, silence means they haven't decided yet. And when that decision moment finally comes, if you're not there, if they forgot about you, if someone else followed up more consistently than you, they get the deal. Even if they suck, even if they cost more, even if they're a bad fit, you disappeared. They didn't. You know what most people do when they get ghosted? They doubt themselves. Well, maybe I wasn't a good fit. I don't want to be annoying. They probably went with someone else. No, they're just shopping. They're waiting to see who's going to pander, who's going to fold first, who's going to act like their time is more important than yours. Let me remind you of something. You're the professional, not them. They reached out to you for help, not the other way around. Even if you're not confident, fake it. Even if you're not the best, own the room. Because the second they sense you're unsure of yourself, you become noise. White noise. Background. Forgettable. When someone ghosts, don't sit there waiting to be remembered. Make sure they can't forget you. If they ghost you, you haunt them. That doesn't mean chasing them down like a lunatic. It means executing with purpose. It means being there, calmly, confidently, until the moment they say yes or they say no. Because until they say one or the other, it's still a sale in play. Silence is a holding pattern, not a death sentence. You're not annoying, you're just inconsistent. That's why you're not closing. Be the squeaky wheel, not the squealing one. Be persistent, not pathetic. If someone ghosted you, that doesn't mean back off. It means go smart. Stay present. Use automation if you've got it. Be sharp, be simple, be hard to forget. Because if they're not thinking about you when the decision moment comes, you were never even in the running. We'll get into exact cadence, phrasing, and pressure building later. For now, you need to lock this in. Silence isn't a no, silence equals not yet, and not yet is where the pros get paid. Chapter 7 days. You've got 7 days. 7 days after the first contact. 7 days after the call, the form, the DM, the conversation. 7 days to land in their brain and stay there or be forgotten entirely. This isn't about closing a sale in a week. This is about planting yourself so deep in their awareness that when they are ready to make a decision, they can't picture doing it without you. You're not chasing, you're establishing. And if you don't, someone else will. Probably less qualified, definitely more annoying. But they'll win because they didn't disappear, and they won't shut the hell up until they get a no. Everyone's hot after the first message. You get a lead, a reply, a sounds good, and for 24 hours, you're fired up. But that's not where deals are made. That's just where interest is shown. Deals are made in the follow-up. If you don't have a follow-up rhythm, you don't have a process. You have a lucky shot followed by silence. And if you think you're going to close off of one or two just checking in messages, you're not in business, you're in fantasy. You don't win the deal by showing up once. You win by being the one they still remember when they're finally ready to move. The 7-day rule is simple. You follow up with precision for 7 days, not with desperation, not with noise, with calculated presence. Every message has a job. Every message is another layer. And every day is part of a rhythm that keeps you sharp, relevant, and impossible to ignore. Let's break it down. Day 1, contact plus calm. Hey, just wanted to send over my contact info so you have it. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. This isn't about pressure. It's about professionalism. You're not chasing the sale yet. You're establishing the bridge. You show up, clearly, with open hands, calm, confident, ready. This message is the baseline. I'm here, and I'm easy to reach. Day 2, confidence plus direction. I'm ready whenever you are. Let me know when's a good time to get things started. Let me know when you're good for a call. Notice what you didn't say. You didn't ask if they're still interested. You didn't beg for a response. You gave direction and acted like the sale is already in motion, and they're just confirming the timeline. You're not waiting. You're preparing. They feel that. Day 3 or 4, insight plus relevance. I was thinking about our conversation the other day, especially when you mentioned insert their specific concern problem. I was wondering how you were planning to navigate that. Then hit them with your angle. Here's how I've helped others handle it and how we can approach it together. Now you're not just checking in. You're showing that you listened, that you're thinking, that you're actually involved. You're not another vendor. You're a problem solver. Day 5 or 6, value plus service. Hey, I remembered you said you were looking for specific need. Thought I'd send you this to help out. It might point you in the right direction either way. You're not selling here. You're being useful. And that builds authority without asking for anything. Now you're the person who helps, not just sells. They remember that. Day 7, pullback plus pressure. Hey, I know it's been a minute since we talked. Just wanted you to know I'm here when you're ready. I've got other prospects I'm jumping on this week, so I may not be in touch as much moving forward. You never say if, always when. This message is the shift. You're showing that your time is in demand, and you're not waiting around. In other words, nicely say, when you're serious about getting started, reach out to me. Otherwise, I wish you the best. It doesn't matter if you have other stuff to do or not. This is where urgency starts to take over, without saying urgent. And guess what? It works, because you've stayed consistent, professional, and positioned. At the end of the 7-day window, you don't vanish. You roll them into a longer follow-up campaign, slow drips, spaced messages, valuable reminders. But now they've already heard from you. They've seen your presence. You've landed in their subconscious. You've made it clear. You don't play games. You don't chase. You control the conversation. And if they want to work with you, it's on your terms. They are lucky to be talking to someone who actually follows up like you. And even if they don't realize it yet, they will. Most people stop following up not because they don't care, but because they're scared of how they'll look. Scared of being annoying. Scared of pushing too hard. Scared of what the lead might think. Guess what? The lead isn't thinking about you at all. They're living their life. And if you're not in front of them, you're not even an option. This is why amateurs lose. They assume the prospect will remember them. They won't. The 7-day rule isn't just a tactic. It's your warm-up. It's your presence campaign. It's your reminder to them and to yourself that you're the one in control. You're the professional. You're the solution. You're the one that doesn't disappear. Because if they ghost you, you're haunting them. That's the rule. This is your warm-up, your proving ground. There's a reason this works. You're conditioning attention. You're building mental availability, which means when the decision comes, you're the one they think of first. Not the cheapest, not the most talented, the one who was there. The first name that comes to mind always wins. The second gets ghosted. The third gets ignored completely. That's what this week is about. It's not pressure, it's presence. And most people have none of it. You know who gets forgotten? The ones who don't follow up, the ones who don't want to be a bother, the ones who think 1 or 2 messages count as consistency. You're not being annoying, you're being remembered. And being remembered is more profitable than being polite. The psychology here is simple. People don't act logically, they act familiar. They buy from people they've seen before, heard from before, trusted, not because of deep research, but because of repeated exposure. Familiar equals safe, and safe the easiest yes. You can be the best in your industry and still lose to someone with less skill, worse service, and a higher price, because they stayed present and you didn't. But let's flip that. When you follow the process, when you show up consistently, professionally, and confidently, you're not just staying visible, you're priming the sale. You're setting the tone. You're giving them a standard to measure everyone else against. Your follow-up creates contrast. It makes every lazy message they get from someone else look worse by comparison. It makes your confidence louder, your clarity sharper, your structure more attractive. You become the opposite of indecision. You become direction. People don't always judge you by facts. They judge you by feeling, by tone, by rhythm, by how they feel reading your message compared to someone else's. It's not a clean spreadsheet of who offers what. It's a gut check. And if you show up with presence, pressure, and professionalism, you become the gauge, the one they compare everyone else to. That's why the 7-day rule works. Not just because you're visible, but because you've shaped what the right choice looks like in their head. So when they finally make the decision, they're not choosing between equal options. They're choosing between you and everyone who didn't do it right. And they know it. Chapter 4, Don't Hype, Help. The 7-day rule got you in the door. Now you have one job. Stay in their head without getting in their way. You're not just following up anymore. You're staying relevant. You're building consistency. And most importantly, you're proving that you weren't just putting on a show for a week. This is where the real sales killers separate from the keyboard warriors. Because anyone can follow up for 7 days. That's discipline. But after that, after the easy momentum fades, now we're talking about strategy, systems, staying power. Because guess what? They still haven't decided. And if you don't keep showing up in the right way, they never will. Well, they will decide, but it won't be a yes to you. Why most people drop off? They think the opportunity is dead. They get scared they're being annoying. They convince themselves if they wanted it, they'd reach out. False. Here's what's really happening. They're busy. They forgot. They got cold feet. They've been thinking about it, but it's buried under 43 other things they care about more in the moment. You are no longer urgent, but that doesn't mean you're irrelevant. This is where you pivot. You stop the daily touches. You step back slightly. You shift to calculated check-ins, value drops, and subtle tension. You don't disappear. You don't sound like a bot. And you don't sound like someone who has nothing better to do. You start playing the long game with intention. Your new rhythm after day 7, you drop into a lighter cadence. Think once every 7-10 days for the first month, then every other week, depending on interest. Once a month if they've ghosted hard but didn't opt out. You rotate between checking in with purpose, offering something useful, asking the right question, and occasionally just reminding them you exist. This keeps you on their radar without being the guy they joke about with their friends. Examples of what to send: check in with direction. Just checking where things stand. Are we still moving forward, or has something shifted on your end? This isn't a vague nudge. It's a professional temperature check. You're asking a direct question that requires clarity, not avoidance. Value drop. You mentioned X was a big concern. I found something that might help in the meantime. Thought I'd send it over. This message says, I listened, I remembered, and I'm here to help, not sell. That makes you stand out. Pressure without pushing. Usually when I don't hear back, it just means timing's off. If you're still considering this, let me know. If not, I'll give this spot to someone else who's ready. You're in charge, not them. You're not asking for permission. You're offering a window that closes on your terms. Graceful pullback. I won't keep checking in. I know you've got a lot going on. If this is still something you're serious about, you've got my number. You're making space while still keeping the door open, but it's clear you're not waiting around. Let the system work for you. This is where smart businesses separate from chaotic ones. You're not manually tracking every name. You're not guessing when to reach out next. You use a system to make sure you stay present without being repetitive. It's not about spamming their inbox. It's about showing up strategically, just enough to be remembered, not enough to get ignored. This isn't noise. This is positioning, the real goal of staying present. This isn't about chasing. It's not about bothering someone until they give in. It's about making sure that when the timing finally is right, they don't have to go looking. You're already there. They're not trying to remember your name. They're not comparing notes. You're the last one they spoke to with clarity and confidence, and that makes you the first one they call when they're ready. Let me give you a real one. I worked with a real estate investor who got this. We didn't build a 7-day touch point. We built a 2-year communication rhythm, set to stay on the radar without being annoying, just enough to keep the prospect aware. Never overbearing. One lead ghosted for over a year. Nothing but space for 14 months. Then out of nowhere, hey, do you still want to buy my house? I haven't had any luck, and honestly, you've been here longer than anyone else. You're probably my best option. That investor closed the deal. And here's the best part. They offered less than the original deal. Because the house was in worse shape, the seller was out of options, and the investor was still standing. Calm, clear, and in control. The seller didn't even blink. They took the offer, because everyone else had vanished. That's what happens when you do it right. You don't pressure, you don't pander, you simply don't disappear. The key here is he used automation. Send them in the right direction and wait. That's the game. In the meantime, he got to go after here and ready deals. Why this works. Every time you reach out the right way, you're claiming mental real estate. People don't always buy from the best. They buy from who they remember. And memory is built through repetition, timing, and relevance. You're not sending just checking in messages. You're showing up with intent, and every touch plants another seed. You become the baseline, the one they compare everyone else to, the one who didn't quit, the one they trust by default, because you were always present. They don't need more fluff. They don't need more noise. They don't need some polished pitch full of promises. They need someone who actually understands what they're dealing with. Someone who doesn't flinch when the silence gets long. Someone who doesn't disappear when the deal doesn't close right away. They don't need hype. They need help. And you're the one who actually delivers it. Chapter 5. You're only an option. You're not the only person they've contacted. You're not the only offer in their inbox. You're not the only one who sounded confident on the call. So stop acting like you've already won. Because right now, you're just an option. You're a tab in their browser, a contact in their phone, a name on a list of maybe. And if you don't show up right, often, and with control, you'll get sorted into the same trash pile as everyone else who thinks interest equals commitment. The sale doesn't start when they say yes. It starts when they start shopping. Most people relax too early. They get a good response, maybe even a sounds good, and immediately think the deal's in the bag. It's not. It's being compared right now to every other person saying the exact same things you're saying. The prospect is doing what they always do, shopping. They're looking to see who's consistent, who's clear, who's actually real, and who just wants their money. You want to win that game? Stop trying to be impressive. Start being impossible to ignore. Let's stop pretending this is some feel-good process. You're not nurturing a relationship. You're in a fight. For attention, for memory, for positioning. This isn't about who has the best offer. This is about who controls the frame. Every time you send a message, every time you show up, you're either proving you're worth choosing or giving them a reason to go with someone else. There's no neutral. There's no, well, I didn't hurt my chances. Silence hurts your chances. Weak messages hurt your chances. Vague, soft, polite check-ins hurt your chances. You don't get chosen by default. You get chosen because you stayed in the room when everyone else gave up. That's what this phase is about, staying sharp while the rest burn out. Because the truth is this, most people tap out. They don't know how to stay relevant past the first week. They vanish after the third message. They stop showing up because they didn't want to be annoying. And guess what? You're not annoying. You're just visible. And the one who's still visible when the decision finally happens wins. They remember the one who was still there. Here's what buyers actually remember. The one who kept the process simple. The one who didn't act desperate. The one who understood their concerns. The one who was still around when they finally said, okay, I'm ready now. Not the one who said it first. Not the one who was the cheapest. Not the one who had the flashiest proposal. They remember the one who never sounded shaky, never faded away, and never stopped acting like a professional, even when the lead went cold. You're not the winner yet. You're still on trial. This entire time they're evaluating you. How you speak, how you handle silence, how you react when they don't respond, how you communicate when they're busy, how consistent your presence is without sounding like a script. They're watching, even when they're not replying. You're not in the lead, you're under review. And if you don't realize that, you'll lose to someone who does. Let them shop. You stay ready. Let them get pitches. Let them hear other offers. Let them get confused by amateurs trying to win with hype. Because the longer that noise drags on, the more they'll crave someone who isn't trying so hard. And that's you. You're not chasing them. You're just the one who hasn't flinched. So when the dust settles, you're still standing. And that's why they call you back. And when they do, ask them what they heard elsewhere. What sounded good and what they didn't like. Here you'll know everything you need to do to drive this one home for the win. The mental flip you need to make. They're not choosing from a lineup of equals. They're eliminating options until one remains. Make sure you're not easy to eliminate. Make sure every interaction earns more space in their head. Make sure you don't blend in with the desperate noise. Because if you're forgettable, you're done. If you're vague, you're done. If you go quiet too soon, you're done. You're not the winner. You're just an option. Until you prove otherwise. Chapter 6, FOMO. FOMO stands for fear of missing out. It's one of the most powerful psychological triggers in sales, and most people ignore it completely. Instead, they try to sell value. They explain features. They talk up the benefits. And then they wonder why the lead disappears. Here's the truth. People don't always move because of how good your offer is. They move because they're afraid they're about to miss their shot, that someone else will take the spot, that the opportunity will pass, that they'll regret not moving sooner. That's FOMO. And if you know how to use it, especially in your long-term communication, you stop sounding like an option and start feeling like a limited window. You don't create FOMO by yelling about urgency. You create it by acting like you're not available forever. You drop lines like, I've got a few others I'm working with right now, but I wanted to check with you first. I won't keep reaching out, just figured I'd see if your timing has changed. Let me know if you want to move forward soon. I can't guarantee I'll still have space. No fake countdowns. No limited time only garbage, just calm, subtle reminders that you're not waiting and the clock is ticking, whether they act or not. FOMO in the communication process. Everything I've taught so far, from the 7-day window to the longer-term structure, is designed to keep you present and relevant. But being present isn't enough. You have to create tension. If you're always available, if your messages always sound the same, if there's never a sense of change, demand, or movement, then you feel static, and static doesn't close. This is where FOMO becomes your ace. You start hinting that your time isn't guaranteed, that your offer isn't permanent, that this lead isn't the only one you're dealing with. You still provide value. You still stay professional. But now you sound like someone who's in demand, not someone who's hoping to be picked. When people feel like something is always available, they don't rush. They hesitate. They delay. They mentally set it aside and say, I'll get back to that later. Later never comes. But when they feel like they might miss it, that the window might close, that the price might change, or the offer might disappear, they start moving faster. Even if they're not 100% ready, they start leaning in. And if you've been doing your job, showing up, staying relevant, answering their concerns, then FOMO becomes the final push that tips the decision. Don't be loud, be limited. There's a huge difference between being hype and being hard to access. Hype sounds like, let's go, don't miss this. Biggest sale of the year, only a few spots left. Limited sounds like, I'm prioritizing the ones who are ready now. I'll keep your name on file, but I can't guarantee anything past this week. If the timing makes sense, great. If not, I'll move forward with others who are ready. See the difference? One is screaming, the other is calm, quiet power. That's what wins. FOMO only works if you're willing to walk. That's where most of you are going to struggle. If you haven't yet read the Failure Manifesto, go back and read that to get past this issue. The reason this strategy works is because you're not bluffing. If they're not ready, you move forward. You don't wait. You don't keep poking them every few days begging for attention. You leave the door cracked just enough for them to step in, but not enough for them to forget about it. You never say, I need this. You say, I'm moving either way, with or without you. And that shift is what flips the entire conversation. Then FOMO becomes the final domino. They don't want to miss out on the one who never begged, never flinched, and never tried to impress them. They want the one who led with control. And that's you. Chapter 7, Hesitation. Nobody likes hearing objections, but pros don't panic when they come. They recognize them for what they really are. Stall tactics. I just need to think about it. I've got to get some things in place first. Let me circle back in a few weeks. Now's just not the right time. These aren't roadblocks. They're smoke. And unless you're new to this game, you already know 98% of objections aren't real. They're just people trying to delay the decision. They're scared. They're unsure. They don't want to say no, but they don't have the guts to say yes. Your job isn't to push. Your job is to expose the hesitation and let it collapse under its own weight. Objections don't just show up on a call or in a meeting. They show up in your message history, buried in phrases like still thinking about it, just trying to figure out timing. This sounds good, but I need to check a few things first. Let me follow up when I'm ready. That's not them managing the process. That's them stalling inside your communication rhythm. So your job? Don't let it slide. Don't ignore it and hope they'll magically reappear in 3 weeks. You treat the objection like you treat everything else. You address it calmly, directly, with control. Here's what objection handling looks like inside your actual contact process. Totally get it, but quick question. If we don't start now, what's the cost on your side of waiting another month? I can't promise I'll have space open if we push this back too far. If we need to hold, I understand. Just want to make sure you've thought through what happens if the issue stays unresolved. Is this more about timing or commitment? If there's a bigger concern behind this, let's hit it now, not later. These don't scream desperation. They don't overcome anything. They reframe the stall and challenge the logic, all while staying in rhythm. You're not pausing the process to debate. You're using your next message to clear the air and move them forward, or move on. You don't write long paragraphs defending your offer. You don't beg for a call. You don't turn your message sequence into a debate. You ask clean, clear questions. You said this was important. What changed? If nothing moves forward, what's your plan B? Do you still want me to block out time for this, or should I pass the space to someone else? Now you're leading again. Now you've shifted the frame. Now you're standing out from the rest of the noise they're ignoring. Just because they stall doesn't mean you stop. The process continues. You keep checking in strategically. You keep dropping value. You keep offering clarity, not pressure. So when their hesitation finally burns out, you're the only one left standing. Let them say, I just need a little time. You say, take what you need. I'll be moving forward with others, but if the timing lines up, I'll be here. Then the rhythm continues. They get the next message in 10 days, then 2 weeks later. then a monthly pulse with a little insight, a little story, a little pressure, just enough to remind them that you're still there, still calm, still controlled, still not chasing. This is a prime reason for a newsletter. Easy way to get in front of your prospect without directly talking to them. They know you didn't send it to them, and they know everybody else that's in your pipeline saw it and may make a move before them. They start to apply pressure themselves. The beauty of a strong communication system is that you don't have to handle anything in the moment. You've already planned for it. Objections aren't a fire. They're part of the process. You build objection response into the messaging flow. You pace out your presence. You switch tone, rotate angles, and let time do the work for you, while still owning the conversation. If they're serious, they'll start solving their own objections. Here's how you know someone is actually serious. They tell you what the problem is and how they plan to fix it. They don't just say, "I'll get back to you." They say, "I need a couple of weeks to move some money," or "I'm waiting on something to clear, but I want to move forward after that." That's a real obstacle. You respond with, "Cool, I'll earmark the calendar for you, but if something changes on your end, keep me in the loop so I can make sure you're taken care of." And that's it. You stay sharp. They know you're not waiting around. And now the next message in the rhythm has weight, not just noise. Don't break the system for the maybe. If they don't move, you move. You don't stop your communication rhythm. You rewrite your strategy because someone said, "Let me think." You walk away when it's time. You show up when it matters, and you stay consistent while everyone else fades out. Because if the objection is real, they'll bring you the solution. And if it's fake, the next message you send will break them or bury them. Either way, you're still in control. Chapter 8, Addiction. Everyone wants instant sales. Nobody wants to commit to a lead for a year. That's why most people lose. Because the truth is, the long game wins. People don't always buy in 7 days, or 30, or 90. Sometimes it takes a year or more. And most people won't stay visible that long. They give up. They move on. They forget the lead, and the lead forgets them. You don't forget. You evolve. You don't chase. You condition. You train your prospects to expect you and to like it. That's the real play. Sales messaging gets ignored. Value gets opened. Here's what you need to understand. People avoid sales messages, but they engage with useful ones. And if you're smart, you'll build your communication around value-first content, even when you're playing the long game. You don't need to pitch every time. You don't even need to mention your offer. All you need to do is become a part of their routine. Make them open the email because it's interesting. Make them expect to learn something. Make them feel like keeping you in their inbox is actually helpful, not exhausting. And guess what happens when they finally need someone like you? They don't Google. They don't shop. They don't ask around. They remember the one who's been helping all along, and they reach out. That's how pros win. Build the system once. Let it run forever. Let me give you a real example. We work with a commercial cleaning company. Their job is to land contracts with property managers, landlords, realtors, and offices. Instead of sending "Are you ready yet?" messages for a year, we built something smarter. We wrote an entire year's worth of short messages, spaced out randomly. Each one packed with a simple cleaning tip, a maintenance reminder, or something niche like, "How often should vents be cleaned in a high-traffic home? Why certain cleaning products actually make your floors worse over time." Quick checklist for getting rid of musty smells before a showing. No pitches, no pressure, just valuable little nuggets that make people think, "Damn, that's actually good to know." And about once every month or two, we drop in a soft reminder. "Hey, we're still here if you need a hand." No CTA, no exclamation points, just presence. What happens next is pure psychology. If you do this right, something wild happens. They start looking for your emails. Because you've trained them to expect something useful. You've built a rhythm. You're a break from the noise. And every time you show up, they associate your name with something helpful, not something annoying. That's how you become top of mind without being in their face. Now, when it's time to hire someone, guess what? You don't need to introduce yourself. They already know you. They already like you, and they already trust you. Even if they've never responded once. Keep this in mind. They don't need to engage. they just need to remember you. Not everyone will reply. Not everyone will like or react or say thank you. That doesn't mean it isn't working. Most people are watching. Most people are lurking. They're absorbing what you're sending, even if they never say a word. But the day the problem becomes urgent, you're the one they reach for, because you've been there the whole time. Not selling, just showing up. Not pushing, just being useful. And that's what makes you unforgettable. What if I don't know what to send for a whole year? Find something that helps people in your industry and break it down into small, useful chunks. If you're a contractor, give maintenance tips. If you're in real estate, talk about prep, staging, or what to avoid when listing. If you sell software, share little insights about process, habits, or tools. If you're a coach, give mindset tips or productivity hacks. Don't teach the whole strategy. Just drip the sauce. Make it good. Make it quick. Make it consistent. Then sprinkle in reminders that you're still open for business. They might not buy today, but they'll think of you when it's time. That's the play. That's the whole game. You're not here to close every lead today. You're here to own the space in their head, so when the time is right, you're the only one they think of. Because when they finally need help, they don't want to scroll through cold emails and compare strangers. They want the one who's been there. You. Chapter 9, this is the end. You've read enough sales advice to last a lifetime. Scripts, formulas, frameworks, templates, and most of it is garbage. Absolute trash, not because it doesn't work, but because you don't apply it. Or if you do, you apply it with the wrong energy. This book wasn't about more scripts. It was about learning to think like a closer, to act like a leader, to move with purpose, not panic. And now it's time to bring the whole thing together and talk about what really matters. Closing. Not just closing deals, closing the gap between who you were before this book and who you need to be now. This entire book was about control. Let's get one thing straight. Sales isn't about tricks. It's about control. Control of your message, control of your tone, control of your process, control of how long you're remembered and what you're remembered for. Everything we've talked about, from the first message to the 7-day rhythm, to the long-term communication, to the FOMO, to the objection handling, it all leads to this. You don't close a deal by convincing someone. You close it by owning the process. You're not there to beg. You're not there to compete. You're not there to talk someone into something they don't want. You're there to lead. Let's rewind the game plan. You started with presence, messaging with control and clarity, not desperation. You built a consistent cadence that made you visible. You crafted strategic messages, not spam. You handled silence with precision, not panic. You walked away from dead weight. You let people miss you. You made them feel like choosing you was their win, not yours. You learned how to keep showing up, how to stay calm while others chase, how to own the frame even when the lead ghosts. And now you close, but not with pressure, with posture, what closing actually looks like. Here's the truth nobody tells you. By the time you're closing, the deal's already done. Closing isn't a moment, it's a culmination. It's what happens when every message, every word, every step before this moment lined up and did its job. So when you finally say, sounds like you're ready, let's get this on the calendar. Or, if this is something you want to move forward with, I'll block out time this week and we'll roll. It doesn't feel like a pitch. It feels like the obvious next step. Because it is the mindset shift. You're not asking, you're offering. Read that again. You're not asking them to buy. You're offering them the chance to work with someone who actually knows what they're doing. You're not chasing, you're inviting. And if they hesitate, that's fine. You say, if now's not the time, no hard feelings. Just don't wait until the problem costs more to fix, or until I'm not available anymore. That's not pressure, that's reality. You gave them the path, you gave them time, you gave them help. If they're ready, they'll walk it. If they're not, you don't wait for them. Closing isn't the end, it's the filter. When you reach the close, what you're really doing is separating the ones who are serious from the ones who are still pretending. And here's the hard truth. Most people won't close. Most people will keep shopping, stalling, and wasting time. And that's okay, because now you know how to spot them early, how to handle them without attachment, and how to walk when you need to, without losing a single ounce of power. In the long game, it keeps running. Even when the deal doesn't close today, you're not done. You've got your system, your message flow, your long-term strategy, your value-based presence that makes people addicted to hearing from you. You keep showing up. They keep seeing you. And when the time comes, they won't even remember the other people they were considering. They'll only remember the one who never disappeared. You, let's say it plain. If you followed this book, here's what you've become. Someone who doesn't beg for the deal. Someone who isn't afraid of silence. Someone who doesn't just reach out, they lead. Someone who doesn't compete on noise, they win on consistency. Someone who closes, not because of pressure, but because they've become the obvious choice. You've stepped out of the cycle of chasing and into a position of power most people never reach. You've become the person they remember, the name they trust, the only option that never wavered. The deal closes when you say it does. So close, with strength, with clarity, with the knowledge that everything leading up to this moment was designed to earn it. You don't hope, you don't cross your fingers, you guide, you lead, you execute. And if they say yes, great. If not, you were never waiting on them anyway. Chapter 10, Imperfect. If there's one thing that kills trust faster than anything else in sales, it's perfection. The perfect pitch, the perfect message, the perfect grammar, the perfect smile in every photo, the perfectly crafted sentence, straight out of ChatGPT. You think it makes you look polished, but to the person reading it, it makes you look fake. Like everyone else, like someone trying to sell them, not someone trying to help them. And after everything we've covered in this book, that's the one mistake that'll kill everything you've built. Because the second you sound like a robot, you become forgettable. This chapter is your final reminder. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be real. Mistype something on purpose, yes, seriously. The more polished your messaging, the more obvious it is that you're using a system. So you want to break the illusion? Misspell something. Skip a period. Use the wrong form of there once in a while. Not because you're sloppy, but because humans aren't flawless. If every message looks like it came from a copy-paste playbook, your lead stops believing you're behind it. Add friction. Add a wrinkle. Add something that says, this was typed by a person in the middle of a busy day. It works, because it makes you human. Use GPT. Just don't sound like it. Let's be honest, GPT is a gift. It can speed up your writing, help you brainstorm, get you out of a jam. But if you use it to write your entire business voice, you'll lose your voice completely. GPT talks like every manual ever written, because it did. But your leads don't want a manual. They want you. Use it to start, use it to riff, but don't copy-paste what it spits out and call it yours. Tweak it, rough it up, make it sound like you. Break the grammar, add slang, make it punch. Otherwise, you'll sound like the 10,000 other robots filling inboxes right now. And your message? Buried. Real beats perfect, every time. You can have the best offer in the world, the best automation, the best pricing. But if you sound fake, it's over. Because people don't buy best. They buy believable. They buy confidence, clarity, consistency, and personality. Show up as someone they can relate to, someone who feels real. Don't hide behind perfect graphics, airbrushed content, or words you'd never say in a real conversation. Post the behind the scenes, the messy desk, the imperfect work, the unfiltered day. Show them you exist. Keep your messages human. You're not a copywriter. You're a closer. You don't need to win awards with your phrasing. You just need to sound like a person who actually meant what they said. So stop sending paragraphs. Talk in short punches. Example, still thinking about this, or did something change? Timing's up to you. I just don't want you coming back in a month when your options are gone. No pitch today, just making sure this didn't fall off your radar. That's how people talk. So that's how you write. Perfect is boring. Real is addictive. Look at who wins on social media. The perfect influencers? No. It's the guy who shows the screw-up, the girl who shows her process, the team that shows the mess behind the masterpiece. Why? Because it's relatable. Same goes for you. If you look too smooth, people assume you're not real, and if they don't believe you, they'll never buy from you. So be messy sometimes. Be casual. Be a little rough around the edges. You'll connect faster than any 5-step sales template ever could. And if you ever forget this, Remember this simple truth. Robots are forgotten. Humans get remembered. You built a system, you built a strategy, you built a message rhythm that turns silence into sales. But the piece that holds it all together? You. Unpolished, unfiltered, unmistakably real, imperfect. And that's what makes you impossible to ignore.